All right, folks, it is Monday, January 13th. I'm just heading home from the office. We're going to do a mini rant, I guess. Sorry, I just got a message for one of the engineers on Brand Ghost. We're going to do a mini rant from something from LinkedIn this morning that I mentioned on one of the previous videos. Just brought it up briefly. I think that'll be kind of fun. I gotta be careful when I rant though, because I don't like to get mean. I still want. It's like I have to catch myself from ranting, or else I get very mean, and I don't like to do that. So we'll keep it positive, but I'd like to get a point across. So we're gonna talk about whether or not you need managers or not. Spoiler alert: I'm a manager, so I have a bit of a bias here, but we'll chat through that. I am sort of trying to get home pretty quick because I just finished a status update meeting that goes sort of after normal hours to accommodate different geographies and different teams and stuff. But I have a live stream at 7 p.m. So in just under an hour on my main channel called Dev Leader. That's where every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific, I do a live stream on topics like we go over on this channel in general. But because it's live, there is the chat to be able to use. And I really like just spending more time answering questions in chat. But if you're curious about the topics that I go over on that live stream, generally, like 95% of the time, they are the same topics as the newsletter content that I have, which is at weekly.devleader.ca. If you do not like newsletters that are emailed to you and you think it's dumb, don't worry. I'm not suggesting you have to go sign up or anything like that. If you just want to read what the topic's going to be, it goes out every Saturday, and you can just go to weekly.devleader.ca and read through it, and to see if you're curious about joining the stream to ask questions about it or just anything you want, really. So with that said, let's dive into things. So the context here is that I post content online as a content creator, sort of on the side, because I like to be able to try and help share experiences with software engineers or aspiring software engineers. It's probably how you ended up here, because either you've watched some other videos or the algorithm on whatever platform you're watching, most likely YouTube, has kind of directed you over here, because that's the kind of stuff I talk about. So I post on like every single platform though. So like obviously if you're watching a YouTube video here, I'm not just like a video creator. It's just one of the things I do, but I post on LinkedIn, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I post everywhere. But obviously platforms like LinkedIn and stuff, I have a lot more written content. I haven't written blog articles in a while because I've been building Brand Ghost that helps me post this stuff everywhere. So on LinkedIn and wherever you can read sort of like written format posts, I generally have stuff about C# and .NET, or more generally just like software engineering, like career stuff, or in my opinion, like how to be a better software engineer. So one of the posts that I had was around managers, and like sort of basically this idea that like if you have a manager, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot on this channel, you'll hear me say like, hey, that's probably something you should get aligned with your manager on, like have a conversation with your manager. And people probably get sick of hearing me say this, but I have to keep saying it because the number of people that I talk to that don't use that as like a step in their troubleshooting is wild. So don't get me wrong when I say this. I love that people are leaving questions and comments, or they'll send me messages and say like, hey, I have a situation, how would I navigate this? And the first thing that comes into my mind is like, and obviously my bias as an engineering manager is to be like, man, like, why are you talking about this with your engineering manager? And it's just like, it's a common theme, right? So part of me, like, I like to talk about things from different angles. I think that, many people either are new and, haven't really kind of built up a working relationship with their manager. Maybe that seems weird. It's intimidating. That's my manager. Like they're my boss. How am I supposed to talk to them about whatever topic? They might be fearful. Maybe they have a shitty manager. I can't rule that out. It's I like to think that how I lead teams, how I manage teams, is sort of not the crappy way to do it. But everyone's going to have their own different style. But you'll hear me talk about how I lead and how I manage, and I wouldn't be doing it if I thought it was crappy, right? But my experience as an engineering manager has led me to believe and lean into the fact that I want to have basically a high trust, high respect, high transparency working relationship with the people that I manage. And that means that it makes it easy for me to give feedback, or easier. If I have to give critical feedback, they know it's coming from a good place, like I'm trying to help them. And it should also mean that ideally they feel comfortable giving me feedback, right? It goes both ways. So for example, if someone was on my team and they felt that they weren't understanding their career progression, hey, I'm trying to work to be, I'm a level 61 at Microsoft. I want to be a level 62 software engineer. I don't really know if I'm on track. Sorry, we had to get past some people that can't go the speed limit. Then that's feedback for me, right? Everyone's going to have a different level of, information that they're looking for, or how much they want updates on sort of their work progress, or some people, for example, really need to hear frequently, if they're doing good work. Other people are they don't want to be recognized that way. Everyone's different. And it's tricky because I might not know this certain detail about someone on my team, and it's really important for me as a manager to be able to get feedback, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean someone's giving me feedback and saying, hey, Nick, I think in general, you're a crappy manager, therefore go do this. It could be very specific to their needs. And other times it might be more general, saying, hey, Nick, when you do this as a manager, this is sort of the effect it has, and I think that it would be nice if you could approach things a certain way. I want that feedback, because I can't be a better manager unless I get feedback, just like it's really difficult for anyone to improve if they don't have a feedback mechanism. Okay, so what I did was I wrote a post essentially talking about this, because I think that many people very quickly go to whatever, they're not getting information from their manager, or they don't have alignment with their manager, or whatever. They feel like their manager's not paying attention. And the first thing they do, instead of trying to have a conversation about it, is they go, well, that's it's something that's unsolvable. Therefore, I either just remain unhappy and frustrated in this position, i.e. not give them feedback, or they go, screw it. My manager obviously sucks. There's no way to make this situation better. I'm just going to go find another opportunity. Again, no feedback mechanism. I mean, that's a little bit of an implicit feedback mechanism. If an engineering manager constantly has people trying to leave, probably means you got to do better, right? Maybe not always. There might be external factors, but I think you get the idea. Now, what I'm not saying is that every single manager is going to be the most open to feedback, and as long as you just talk to them, they're going to be awesome, and everything's going to change. I can't make that claim. That would be kind of ridiculous, because I know that crappy managers exist. There are managers that would never want to hear feedback, and that are micromanagers and want things a certain way and don't want to hear anything you have to say, and actually don't really care about you. They just care about themselves. People like this do exist. My meta point with a post around this, you should try to find opportunities to work with your manager, to build that relationship up, to be able to give them feedback, is essentially too many people just don't focus on this at all. They don't even give it an opportunity. And then I go on to say, like, if you never have this opportunity for feedback, how would you ever expect that these people get better? And I'm not saying it's like solely your responsibility to give the feedback to your manager so they can do better in their career. But like, if you, it's like, if you want someone to do better and you don't give them feedback, like, do you just magically expect that it happens? Like, just reverse it, right? Like, as an engineering manager, if I was like, oh, this person's underperforming, and I just sat back and never said anything to them, why would I be surprised if they just kept doing what they're doing? And then I was like, oh, they're so bad. Oh, I'm so frustrated. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I wrote this post to try and highlight this and saying, like, in my opinion, you should try and find ways to improve this working relationship such that you can give feedback to your manager and try to improve things before, just kind of giving up on the fact that a situation can be improved. Basically, if you invest a little bit of energy into this, you may have better success than just avoiding it altogether. And these people really need to speed up because we got to merge. And you can't merge if you're going below the speed limit. Okay. We just got to get over one more lane here. Two more lanes. Excellent. Okay. Maybe we'll actually get home at a good time. So what happens is, obviously, it's LinkedIn. You're going to have the AI comments that are like superb, like thoughtful post. You're going to have the people that basically vigorously agree with anything you have to say. You're going to have people that disagree, which is totally fine. Like, I had some people saying, like, my experience has been that my managers aren't open to feedback, which is it's totally valid, right? That's why I was trying to say, like, I'm not telling you that this just works with every manager. I just think that it's something that you need to be open to if you want to try and improve a situation. So totally valid, right? And then someone just said, the comment this morning was, most people don't need to be managed, which I thought was interesting because most people don't need to be managed. I think basically most people don't need to be micromanaged, but it sounds like when I hear that, maybe it's just me misinterpreting what this person's saying, is that basically we don't need the role of a manager, because why would we need that if most people don't need to be managed, right? Oh man, there's a bus. We got to get around the bus. Buses driving in the fast lane and not going the speed limit is like, gotta be one of the most aggravating things ever. I think they were going like 45 in the fast lane. At least it's 2 lanes here, because up ahead it goes down to 1. And I have absolutely been stuck in traffic only to get stuck behind a slow bus in the fast lane, where you're literally paying money to drive to go slow. So I don't really take well to the idea as an engineering manager, where I've spent most of my career trying to do this, that we just don't need the role of an engineering manager. So, disclaimer, spoiler alert, I went and checked this person's profile, and they're a contract worker, which is interesting because I think that probably in this person's experiences, like I didn't really have a productive conversation with them, but I suspect that their style of working is that they don't enjoy being integrated in teams. They're not interested in anything to do with like career progression in the sort of traditional sense. But their claim is that most people don't need to be managed. And my exact opposite experience is that if we just had the engineers, because before Microsoft, I worked simultaneously as an engineer and an engineering manager, so as a hybrid technical manager role, I know what it was like to have like non-technical managers, or to have bad managers, or to have absent managers. As an engineering manager now, I know what it's like to have, absent managers, or to have bad managers. I know what that's like. So I can totally agree with, like, most people don't need to be micromanaged. By the way, some people do. Sounds kind of crazy, I know, but I've actually had like interns or junior developers that actually do need to be micromanaged and actually perform better and actually are happier in some instances where they are being micromanaged. And it's because they haven't yet figured out how much time they should spend on stuff, and they really need that guidance. And they have told me that when I start giving more guidance around timelines, checking in with them more, that they're like, this feels better, thank you. I realize that sounds totally ass backwards, because it's not how I would ever expect anyone to operate, but I've had situations like that, and they like it. And then we kind of build up their sort of momentum where they can understand this stuff better. Buddy, if you're going to merge in, you got to commit to it. You can't be trying to merge in going slower than me. It's not going to work too well. I don't think most people need to be micromanaged. I think that does actually not work well. But to say most people don't need to be managed, I think is inaccurate. Because I cannot imagine any place I've ever worked just not having management. Now, I think, and maybe this person, I cannot speak on their behalf. I don't know. And this is where I'm trying not to be rude or mean, right? Maybe from their experience, they don't really understand how much happens behind the scenes on engineering teams. Because isn't it just code and building things and writing tests and pull requests and builds? I mean, yeah, it's a lot of it. But I don't think people really realize how much shit happens that you're not seeing that's just code. And I've made videos about this before. When people transition into engineering manager roles, one of the things that they don't realize is how much time gets spent on people. At least if you want to do it effectively. Because you can absolutely be an engineering manager and neglect people altogether, and guess what's going to happen? You're probably not going to have a team that wants to stick around for very long. So, this person, I had explained to them, I gave them a list of things. I said, and maybe it's my fault, maybe I was a little bit too sarcastic with them because of how they posted their comment. So I will take some blame there, but basically said, oh, sure, like I haven't seen people, and then listed a whole bunch of things that I do as an engineering manager that I believe help people. For example, helping people get unblocked from the work they're doing, helping people navigate when they're having difficulties outside of work and how that's affecting their work that they're doing. Having conversations with people about interpersonal conflicts at work, having conversations with people about not being able to get buy-in from other teams. I've had conversations with people where they're uncomfortable speaking English. I have many conversations with people that often have nothing to do specifically with code. I also have plenty of conversations with people about their code. The point is that I was trying to give a bunch of examples of, like, as an engineering manager, here are the things that I do on a regular basis to help people. And the response, the response was great. And basically they wanted to say along the lines of, I disagree with you. And they use the phrase, and like something like, in all of the other things you spewed from your managerial pustules, is what they said to me. And then they said at the end of it, like, looks like I'm right. So they, the most nonsensical bullshit I've ever seen someone try to, like, use as a claim, as evidence to being right, was like, I don't like what you said. I'm going to insult you, and then like QED, therefore I'm right. I think all that really proved is that like this person doesn't really have much for interpersonal skills, maybe. So I said, yes, looks like you're right. And then after that, they deleted their comment, which is very fascinating to me. So I had to ask, I said, why did you delete the comment about my managerial pustules? And then I think they tried to make a statement like, oh, maybe I was not overreacting, but maybe, I don't know, I was like leaning into it too hard. And then they said, then they had to like double post, and they were like, but I'll let you get back to like helping your teams, like kind of sarcastically. And it's like, I don't know, man. Just like, sure. I don't have any idea what I'm talking about, is what I learned today, which is pretty cool. No one needs career guidance. No one needs any sort of assistance. They can figure it out on their own, which is great. I mean, that means I can retire or go to move on to do other things, which is super awesome. But I thought it was kind of funny. Like I said, I think one of the things that's going on here is the nature of the work that this person's done for their entire career. Like, they're their own boss. They're a contract worker, right? So they have chosen a path that's likely very much the case where they don't have a direct manager. They have someone who might be a stakeholder for the work that they're doing, but they don't have like a manager that's going to be guiding them at all. And perhaps for that person, it works very well. That's why they're doing it this way. So what you didn't hear me say is that there are 0 people in the world that do not need managers. I didn't say that. But the claim was that most people don't need managers. And I don't know if most people are contract software developers or if most people work at an engineering organization in teams. So maybe someone has some data around that, and maybe statistically I am actually incorrect, and that most people are contract workers that don't need managers, or they're solo devs. I don't have the data, so if I'm wrong, that's cool. I learned something today. But I think that I needed to be able to at least explain what the benefit of a manager is to someone who, I guess, refuses to acknowledge that such a thing is helpful. And I made videos on this before too, but when people go to argue things on the internet, it's really funny. Because instead of engaging in like what could be like a thoughtful exchange, to just be like, I won't even entertain your perspective, go into some type of insult, and then just like dismiss and sort of restate your claim. To me, I'm like, why are we doing this, right? This is such a moronic thing to do. Like, you're literally wasting both of our times. Instead, what's really cool actually is, let's take this person. And this is why, like, sometimes you'll hear me talk about things, and I actually try to explain other perspectives that I may not agree with, and I'm going to do it right here, right? So what would have been really cool is if this person leaned into the fact that they were like, hey, like, I am a contract developer, or hey, I am a solo dev, and I actually enjoy the fact that I don't have a manager, and then said like, and here are some of the reasons why I like that freedom, flexibility, or how it's helped me sort of learn my own way and how to be effective. And so, I find that maybe this advice doesn't align with me because I wouldn't want to find myself in those situations or something, like where I need to sort of lean on someone for that type of assistance. Like, that would be like an insightful thing for me to learn about how they navigate their software development, right? I'd be totally open to hearing that. That's cool. I think one thing they said too, and I omitted this, was they said something along the lines of like, there's nothing I would want less than to like share my, than to have to share anything personal with someone that's only aligned to like what a corporation wants. It's like I don't know where this person thought I said, like, you must share personal stories with me. I don't know. Kind of weird. I think maybe they're trying to make a weird argument around the fact that I said, if people have challenges outside of work and they want like some help with that, then that's something that, say they can't get their work done because they have a sick family member. Like, I don't know. You don't have to tell me you have a sick family member, but if you can't get your work done, we're having a conversation about it, right? So I need to understand what's going on. I don't need the details. If you don't want to tell me that, that's totally cool. I don't need the details. But if you said, hey, I have some like personal things going on outside of work and they're causing me to not be able to focus and I would need some extra time, is it okay? Like, that's totally fine. Like, I just want to know that you're okay. Because if I start to see your performance dip and I don't know what's going on, in my opinion, as a good manager, I want to look into that and try to make sure that I can help support you. So no, I don't need the details about your personal life. If you want to share them with me because you're comfortable, that's totally fine, right? If you said, I have some challenges outside of work and you want to leave it like that and say they're distracting and causing you to maybe lose focus at work, or, you can't stay late or whatever, right? That's fine, leave it there. But if you said like, hey, my partner has been sick recently and we've been going to the doctors a lot, like, if you like, I'm not forcing you to share anything you don't want to share. So I don't know, kind of like a ridiculous way to look at it. So I don't know, man. People on the internet are funny. But I think, come on, let's keep going here. That is a green light. You are allowed to drive. I look at my role as an engineering manager as a support role. I have talked to engineers on teams that have absent managers. Here's a bit of a litmus test for, for me, feeling like the work I do adds value. Okay, and aside from just like my manager saying, "Good work, Nick," which is nice to hear. But aside from that, one of the things that tells me that I'm having a positive impact, maybe in like the most meaningful way, is that I have had people in my career that will follow up with me, whether it's months, years later after working together, and say, hey, do you have openings on your team? Because I would really like to be able to work with you. Where people are kind of seeking that out because they've had an experience with me where they said, hey, like, I do want to be supported in that way. I've seen how you lead teams. I would like that. Like, or, I have reported to you before and I would like to be able to do that again in the future. To me, that's like one of the best markers I could have. That's like, that I'm doing, or sort of that I'm supporting my teams, right? So that's a feel-good kind of thing. But if I had never heard that, or I had people that were constantly leaving my teams, maybe I would feel the other way, like maybe the work I'm doing is not helpful. So, yeah, I don't know. I think this person's wrong. But like I said, maybe statistically it doesn't work that way. But anyway, I think that's all for that topic. Just a little rant. I don't know, be interested to hear from people. If you're open to having a positive, constructive conversation in the comments, what kinds of managers have you had and how has that impacted you? And if you are the kind of person that's a solo dev, contract worker, or maybe you've only worked in teams and you're like, I actually don't want to have a manager. I can navigate my career totally fine. I never get blocked on stuff. Like, and I'm not trying to be facetious here. Like, I would actually be genuinely curious if you've been able to sort of navigate working at a company as a software engineer and, managers have only made things difficult for you. Because I would love to understand, is it like because the manager was bad, and what made them bad in your working relationship? Or is it just that you've never had a manager provide some type of support that that you thought was helpful, and or perhaps the opposite, only made things more challenging? That road is terrible. So yeah, if you're, a person that has experiences they want to share, I'd love to hear in the comments. Because like I said, like, I'm open to different perspectives. I'm not open to when people are trying to be a piece of shit to me. Don't really stand for much of that, but I try to make sure I'm not being too mean anymore. I don't like doing that. Like, I feel bad about it after. Maybe like when that person deleted their managerial pustules. Can you like imagine writing that to a stranger? Like, it just makes me really, like, to give you one example, I feel like everything that I've said to this camera in this conversation, I'd be totally fine to have a conversation with this person to their face about it, because I don't feel like I was mean, and I feel like anything I said, I was even trying to take on some of their perspective and navigate it. Like, why? Like, what would I have to be worried about to talk through this, right? But for them, like, would you literally, having never spoken to me before, and I said, these are things that I do as a manager that I think are helpful, and then you go on to say something about my managerial pustules. Like, would you actually say that to me? That's weird. It's a super weird thing to say to someone. So anyway, I do hope that this person's able to kind of continue on successfully in their career. If they're doing contract work or independent software development, they don't need a manager. Excellent. And again, I'm not being facetious. I want people to succeed. And I hope, too, that they can work on some of their interpersonal skills, because I don't think that's any way you talk to anyone, really. Seems kind of bizarre, but maybe they're in a bad mood. I don't know. Maybe they've had really bad experiences with managers. Often I find, and I've actually had some interesting troll comments turn around. I do find that when people take really aggressive stances on things and they become mean, so like you make a post about something or a video and someone comments back and they're just like ripping into you for something, and just being mean, right? Instead of like talking about what's going on. I often find that these individuals have had a really bad experience, and what they're doing is like having almost like an emotional response to what they read or watched. And instead of going into like let me share some different perspective with you on this, instead it's almost like they take out, I don't want to say trauma, that's maybe too extreme, but they take out their negative emotional response on you instead. One example of this, I can't remember, it was on Blue Sky, I can't remember what the actual conversation was about. And this person responded to a post I made, and they were just being mean. And I remember it because I remember this conversation because not the details, unfortunately, but I was driving with my wife, and she doesn't like when I'm mean to people on the internet, which is fair. So I said, hey, like, this person's, being a bit of an asshole. And she's kind of like sitting there like don't do this, like, whatever. And I said, no, like, I said, I'm actually going to say to them, like, it sounds like you've had a bad experience with this. Do you want to talk about it? And they actually turned their sort of like troll rant into something that was like, yes, I have had a bad experience with this. And we talked about it. And then we left that conversation being like, cool, like, thank you for sharing your perspective. So yeah, usually when I see people that are just being a piece of shit, it's like, I think it's because they had a bad experience and they don't really know how to, I guess, like share things effectively, or at least in like a constructive way, right? Because like I said, I'd be happy to talk about that stuff, but I got a live stream to do. It's in 20 minutes. I made it home On time, I can even eat dinner. This is great. If you want to join the live stream, if you're watching this, you've already missed this week's live stream on DevLeader. So on my main channel, DevLeader, next week, Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific, join me. It'll be on software engineering discussions, maybe a little bit less ranty than this one. But please come with your questions, career-related, technology-related. Happy to try and answer them. The topics are from my DevLeader weekly newsletter at weekly.devleader.ca. If you just want to show up and ask questions, that's totally cool too. So hope to see you there, and I'll see you next time. Take care.